Hello, my friend. This week, I am going to take you step by step through one of my very favorite designs, a galaxy night sky. I have done variations of this design so often, and it's one of my most relaxing go-tos for when I'm having a really stressful day and I just need to see some bursts of color. So I think you're gonna really love it. Let's dive in. Hello, my friend. Welcome back to my channel. In this tutorial, we're going to tackle one of my favorite go-tos for relaxing after a really stressful week. We're going to take my kind of classic night sky design, but add a little twist and turn it into a beautiful galaxy. So we're going to use some pretty simple tactics here, some pretty simple basic techniques, but hopefully it will result in something that you're really proud of. So first, I'm just going to tape down my paper. I'm using a Wonder Forest watercolor notebook here. And so I'm just going to leave the ends of the tape a little bit long so I can wrap them around the journal to keep my paper especially taut. And we're going to use the wet on wet technique. So first, I'm getting my paper wet with clean water. And then I'm going to start adding in some colors. So we're starting with some French ultramarine blue here. And because we're doing a galaxy, I am going to choose colors that play well together. One of the best ways to choose colors that will blend well together is to take a look at the color wheel. And any colors that are next to each other on the color wheel, also called analogous colors, those will blend together beautifully every single time. So that's what I'm doing for this project. I am making sure to use colors that I know will blend well together. Blue and purple, like I'm using French ultramarine blue, and then that is rosamarine. Blue and purple always blend well together. Now I'm gonna add some light teal, some cobalt teal light in there. And this is turning out to be a really magical, beautiful blend. This particular combination of colors, that kind of red, violet, and blue and teal, like turquoise teal color, it's probably one of my most favorite color combinations. And it's one I go to a lot. Like I said, when I'm done with work and I need a way to kind of cool down, creating these galaxies is super fun. So we're using the wet on wet technique. And as you can see, we let that first layer dry. And now we're re-wetting and doing the exact same thing. You might also see I'm kind of doing a dance between adding paint, washing off the paint, and then blending it together with a lot of clean water, and then adding more paint, and then blending it. The reason that I wash off my brush before blending everything is because I do want to maintain some of those colors, right? I don't want all the colors to disappear into one big blob. I want to see some pockets of teal. I want to see some pockets of red violet. I want to see some pockets of blue. And so by using water uh, to kind of blend those colors together, I can maintain those individual colors. Now I let that layer dry and then I re-wet with clean water again. And now I'm just adding some Payne's gray along the outer edges, turning this really into a galaxy night sky, right? This is one of my favorite techniques with galaxies is adding the base colors in the layers before, letting those layers dry, and then adding Payne's gray, a very, very dark blue, just along the outer edges and maybe kind of clouding or, intruding a little bit into the middle, but not so much, and then leaving behind pockets of color. And then in order to make it look not so, what's the word I'm looking for? Choppy, maybe, then where I'm washing off my brush and I'm just kind of tapping along with a lot of clean water so that the blue blends in, the Payne's gray blends in nicely with everything else. So now I'm going to add in even more of my original colors, just in a few spots, so that this sky is super vibrant. Careful layers will be your best friend when you're creating galaxies. Careful layers and a lot of clean water. The layers and the water work so well together because the water is what gives your painting that luminous texture, right? The water is what pushes away the paint and allows the white of the paper to kind of come through and blend everything together, giving you those pockets of light. And then the layers are what allow you to continue to get that really vibrant effect because you can use the water and dilute the paint and then build up more and more layers so that even though your layers are delicate, when you add them when you add them all up, it results in this really cool, vibrant blend with a lot of depth. And so that's really the key as we're building out this galaxy night sky. Another really important factor here is contrast, right? Because the layers, the colorful layers are contrasting against the dark, dark, dark blue of the Payne's gray, they look brighter. If ever you want something to look brighter with watercolor, or honestly, probably with any paint medium, contrast is going to be your friend. If you can make your light parts light and your dark parts dark, honestly, even if your light parts aren't quite as light as you intended, if you can contrast them against very, very dark subjects, it will help you a lot. So, contrast is a really important tool to use along with layers and luminosity. So at some point, I think my sky is done after dancing between colors and Payne's gray and water. And now, while the sky is still wet, I'm going to take some Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White, which is white gouache, and I'm going to splatter on some stars. So I'm going to do stars in two different layers, one while the sky is wet, one while the sky is dry. And that's, again, to add depth, right? Layers add depth. And so layers are your friend. And so I splattered on some stars. And I also, while the sky is still wet, am going to kind of form my own stars with even more white gouache, just a few like accent ones. And my favorite way to do this is to tap in some of the gouache and then using a clean brush, just kind of tap around to make it look like that star is glowing while the sky is still wet is really important. So then I let that layer dry and I'm splattering on even more stars and more stars and more stars. I honestly don't know that you could possibly add too many stars unless you're like covering up all of the colors, but I probably did 5 or 6 rounds of those stars before I felt, vaguely satisfied. So then I let that dry. And now I'm going to paint one of my very favorite silhouettes against a galaxy night sky like this, which is just a line of blobby trees. So the way I paint my trees is with a straight, relatively, line with Payne's gray, and then blobs on either side. It sounds simple, and that's because it kind of is. You just kind of paint loose blobs on either side to make it generally look like a tree. And then also the key is to make the trees different sizes, different heights. Contrast, again, is going to be your friend. It doesn't have to just be with color. Contrast with size and shape is also something that will help you achieve depth and complexity when you're painting anything. So when I'm painting a row of trees, in order to make it look like some of the trees are going inland and there's depth to this line of trees, I'm adding contrast. Some of them are tall, some of them are big, some of them are short, some of them are skinny. And that just gives your eyes a lot more things to look at. And so that's why it's more pleasing to the eye. And we're done. After that little line of trees, I think that this simple, relaxing watercolor galaxy night sky is finished. And it's my favorite thing to finish a painting session like this by marveling at how satisfying it is to take the tape off. So as I'm taking the tape off, I noticed that some of the paint got in the little crevices of the tape, which happens. And so some of the corners of this painting have little paint things, little lines of paint coming out. And so I'm going to show you, I don't know that I would call it a trick because I don't know how effective it is, but this is one thing that I like to do sometimes if, that happens to me and I kind of want those corners to look a little sharper. I just take my white gouache and basically I paint over them. Now, this works better if the paper that you're using is like bright white. Right now, the paper I'm using in this Wonder Forest watercolor notebook is more off white. So it's not quite, it doesn't quite match, but honestly, you might not be able to tell because it's a little far away, right? And because this is in a watercolor journal, I don't care that much. But like if you were painting this and giving it away and thinking, oh no, I ruined it because the paint got in under the tape, fear not, my friend. You can use some white gouache to just kind of, paint over it and make it look like you didn't do any of that. One thing I could do is kind of color match, right? Like I'm thinking if I take some white gouache and I add a tiny, 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 tiny bit of a yellow ochre brown mixture, something like that, to kind of get like the tone of off white, because right now it looks almost blue, like a light, light blue is on top, then to do some color mixing and color matching, I might be able to get the exact tone of the paper, but not something that's really worth my time at this juncture. So, anyway, I had so much fun painting this with you. I really do love teaching you all of my favorite tricks when it comes to watercolor, and I hope that you had fun. It looks like I did not finish editing this, and so you get some shaky as I'm moving my camera, but we're all about keeping it real here. So, um, anyway, I'm just rambling on. Once again, thank you for coming to my channel. If you have any requests for future tutorials, or if you have any questions for me, please drop them in the comments. I would love to answer. And thank you for the millionth time. I will see you next time.